Welcome back to Fast Market, everyone. Kevin Hinks back here for our middle segment of the show. Let's do a quick market update. The S&P now down about 1/8%, about 6 points to 4394. The NASDAQ down about 0.4 now, about 60 points to 14,837. The Dow down about 0.1%, about 29 points to 34,725. And the Russell down about 0.5%, about 11 points to 2239 and some change. All right, now let's move to our cash tag segment. For that, Nick Theodorakis has agreed to stay around and throw it around with us. And we also bring in the co-founder of LikeFolio.com, Mr. Landon Swan. And Landon, if you come to my house and you bring brisket, that's a great way to get invited back to my house, Landon. So we're talking about Chipotle. And we're talking about smoked brisket. My kid's had it. He said it's awesome. Tell me what you're seeing in terms of data on smoked brisket, Landon.
So the brisket data is fantastic, frankly. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. I haven't had it yet myself.
Hello, it's brisket.
I mean, how bad can it be, right? I mean, Chipotle,
exactly.
Queso 3 years ago, but ever since they got the new CEO, they haven't screwed up anything since. So I think they got one strike against them, and since then they're hitting it out of the park. So really good on them. Brisket data is very strong. It's actually the early digital release is actually showing data almost as high as the pandemic surge. So when people were forced to order online, that got a very high number of mentions, obviously. And now with the brisket being on the app, you can actually see that it was almost as high as the pandemic mentioned. So it's having a huge impact. And in fact, if you go back and look at one of their big successes was the digital only quesadilla, right? That got them a ton of new customers, people re-engaging with the app, which is now about half of their revenue, digital orders. And look at how much better the brisket is doing. And that the quesadilla was a very successful campaign. So this is a story that is, you got to go back several years. Think about, and I mentioned the queso kind of flop, right? That was a big failure. Happiness on LikeFolio's score dropped 20 points. Pretty much overnight when the queso came out. People were very disappointed with it. That was in late 2017. In early 2018, they hired the Taco Bell CEO, Brian Niccol, away from Taco Bell and made him the CEO. Since
Brilliant
then,
move.
The stock has only gone up about 6x, right? So absolutely dominant. This is one of those cases. If you ever talk to somebody who says CEOs get paid too much, he made $38 million last year. Well, he's taken the company up $51 billion in market cap under his leadership. So shareholders are getting $42 billion in market cap. Shareholders are getting 1,000x return on his pay, if you can attribute a lot of that to him. So absolutely crushing it. It came out with cauliflower rice, carne asada, the digital only quesadilla, and now it's brisket. So Chipotle is doing extremely well from their lows of around 320 when he was hired up to the 1830s or 1840s now. So the data that we're seeing is very strong on this. The timing is obviously nice because they report earnings in a couple of weeks. I think it's around October 21st. Everything that we're seeing on Chipotle right now is positive. It's not a huge score. When it comes to the earnings score, it's a plus 21, but we suspect that this brisket over the next couple of weeks is going to continue to push that score higher, and most likely, LikeFolio data is going to be very bullish heading into earnings.
Hey, Landon, I'm absolutely shocked that people like brisket. No, I'm kidding. I understand all the vegetarian options as well, but man, to add a flavor bomb like that to your menu is pretty awesome. Not surprised to see people reacting well. What are you gleaning anything from this in terms of demand? And I guess where I'm going with that question is, if demand is that high, what do you think we're going to hear from them in terms of their supply chain? They're a huge employer of frontline workers. They're a huge buyer of beef, which we all, have seen has just gone, kind of exponentially priced as well. And is the demand, although demand appears to be good, are they keeping pace with that? And how is that going to affect maybe their profit margins and the overall stock's performance, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be tough. Obviously, we don't have data insights on that, but I will say that they do have pricing power, right? I mean, they are a very large buyer of all these products. So, they're going to be competing against a lot of companies that are going to have to pay a little bit more. So maybe the prices all go up across the board and potentially it's less impactful at Chipotle. I would like to share this chart with you guys. This is that scatter plot that we love to share, where the x-axis, the left to right axis, is how well they're doing on purchase intent or mentions, and the y-axis is happiness. You can see, just compared to some of its, I don't know if you want to call these peers. It's kind of tough to throw different companies in with Chipotle, but you can see some of their peers on the wrong side of that dotted line, that vertical dotted line, losing interest, losing mentions, where Chipotle is really singling itself out. Happiness is really nothing. It's nothing to brag about. It's kind of just hanging in there, but it is on the rise with Brisket, and the mentions are just through the roof. So they are moving in the right direction, and I think they're separating themselves from the pack. And so if there are supply chain problems, I think that they'll be more likely to weather them than anyone else, because if prices go across the board, A, they've got pricing power, and B, if you've gotten more demand, then you're more able to pass off those higher prices to your customers than someone with lower demand.
Yeah, now for our viewers, when you look at the LikeFolio scatter plot, think of it really simply. The best place to be is the top and to the right. So if you see Chipotle all the way over to the right and pretty close to the top, that is really positive for LikeFolio. But what Brian Nickel brings to Chipotle from Taco Bell is how he uses data, right? And they started this brisket in Cincinnati and Sacramento, and from that they got feedback from the customers on the consumer data. They got the finance data, how to pay for it. They got the operations data on how to make it, and then they roll it out. Now, they've rolled out 3. This is their 3rd big menu item this year, probably with, the quesadilla is very popular. The brisket is popular. I think the jury's still out on cauliflower rice. That doesn't sound very good, but the other 2 are big home runs, I'm sure, in terms of taste. And so they've been working on this, I guess, for 2 years for getting a brisket ready to come out to the market. So Landon, when you look at this, your mentions count for Chipotle, you don't see very many charts like you just gave us here with a jump like that. That is a catastrophically large jump in interest based on that. So it has come back down since. This is supposed to be temporary, but your views on how Chipotle goes forward with this, how do they keep momentum going, Landon?
I don't know. They're getting a ton of new people in the door. I hope it doesn't turn out to be like the McRib, where they only bring it back when the prices are right. We'll see. But, you talk about some of those previous hits, just to give a little scale here. The Carne Asada was a very big hit. They added, I think, 10 million customers on the digital, and very strong on that. The digital-only quesadilla was huge. That improved happiness 6 points on LikeFolio's scale. If you look at brisket, the brisket numbers on release were 3.5 times the Carne Asada and 5 times the quesadilla. So this is just an
awesome,
out of the ballpark type home run. I mean, absolutely crushing it. Initial impressions are extremely high, and like you said, who doesn't like brisket? So the people that don't like brisket probably like cauliflower rice. So I think they're getting whoever they're getting their target customer one way or the other. Early data is extremely strong, and I think that that you asked the right question: how do they sustain this? So is this temporary? Is it going to be a permanent menu item? I don't know. We'll see how the rollout goes and how the pricing goes. I think that's extremely important. And again, hope it's not a McRib, because it looks like for this company, it is very, very strong data. And as you said, they like to go off the data. So I would not be surprised if this sticks around.
And the sauce is
we're only allowed water here on
pepper.
So we're only allowed water here on the TDA network, but we're only allowed water here. But I'm starving talking about this, just so you guys know. In terms of store performance, are you seeing anything, Landon? Just like kind of indicating where this is popular. You mentioned kind of where it got its start. Is this a nationwide thing? Are you getting any sense of where these likes are kind of coming from? Is it well received everywhere? Because I agree with what you said about sort of having the the new meat item and then new vegetarian options to kind of bring in all types of customers. But is this nationwide, or is there pockets where it's sort of more popular than others that you're seeing?
Well, so LikeFolio data actually doesn't discriminate between geography, so we don't have that. But I can tell you, when you look at, Carne Asada, it had a same-store sales boost of 11%, and I just mentioned that there's 3.5 times mentions on the brisket versus the Carne Asada. So I'm not necessarily saying that we're going to see 50% increase on same-store sales, but there is a huge buzz around this product that is going to create a large inflow of new customers and probably get people back on that app that's now on the digital, that is now over half of sales. I think it was 48% last report. So this is continuing them on the right track. And again, you have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, Brian Nickel absolutely crushed this over the last 3 years, and the company is up 5x. It's just insane how well that leadership can do. And so, as an investor, this would make me feel very comfortable that that this wasn't just luck with the last few things. And the queso flop was pre Brian Nichols, pre the CEO switchover. So that you don't put that on him. And since then, he's batting 1,000. So as an investor, I'm very encouraged by this new product and the response from the consumer base.
Landon Swan, co-founder at LikeFolio.com. Thank you for coming on and making not only Nick and I, but all our viewers and staff extremely hungry. Landon, have a great Friday. Always appreciate you coming on. Say hi to the troops at LikeFolio, and we will talk to you soon, sir. Have a great day.